All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a super fascinating puzzle, one that's happening deep inside our own nervous system. It's almost like a biological mystery story, and believe it or not, the clues are written right into our very own wiring.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a question that honestly sounds impossible. How could a single injury, just one spot on your spinal cord, cause you to lose the feeling of touch on, say, your right side, but the feeling of pain on your left side? It seems like it shouldn't work that way, right? Well, the answer reveals this incredible secret about how all of us are wired.
So picture this. A patient comes in with an injury on the right side of their spinal cord. Now, below that injury, on the right leg, you could brush them with a feather and they wouldn't feel a thing. But you could prick them with a pin and they'd feel that just fine. Now, here's the crazy part. On their left leg, it's the total opposite. They can't feel the pinprick, but they can feel the feather. I mean, how on earth is that even possible?
Well, this incredibly weird set of symptoms actually has a name. It's called Brown-Sequard syndrome, and it happens when an injury damages just one half of the spinal cord, a hemisection. And like I said, figuring this out, it's the key to unlocking a fundamental secret about our body's wiring.
Okay, so to really crack this case, we've got to change how we think about the spinal cord. It's not just one big cable sending signals. Nope, it's much more like a massive superhighway, a bundle of different lanes, all carrying specific information. And in neurology, they call these lanes tracks.
And just like any highway, you've got traffic going in two directions. You have the ascending tracks. Think of these as the northbound lanes, carrying all the sensory info, everything you feel, up to the brain. Then you've got the descending tracks, the southbound lanes. They're sending motor commands down from the brain, telling your body what to do.
All right, here's where it gets really good. The solution to our whole mystery. It's all about two of those northbound sensory highways. Why? Because even though they're both headed to the same place, the brain, they take completely different routes to get there.
Okay, first up we have what's called the dorsal column pathway. This is kind of like the luxury lane on our highway. It carries all the really detailed, high-fidelity information. You know, stuff like the feeling of a silk shirt, the buzz of a tuning fork, or that weird sense you have of where your arm is even with your eyes closed. That's called proprioception, by the way. Now listen closely, because this is the most important part of its travel plan. A signal for fine touch, say from your right foot, it enters the spinal cord, and then it shoots straight up on that same side, the right side. It stays on the right side all the way up until it gets to the brainstem. Only then, way up high, does it finally cross over to the other side.
Yeah, a great way to think about it is like an express train. It gets on the tracks on one side and just barrels ahead, non-stop. It doesn't switch tracks until it pulls into the main terminal, which, in this case, is the brainstem.
Okay, so that was our express train. Now let's look at the second pathway. This is the spinothalamic pathway. And if the dorsal column is the luxury lane, this one's more like the emergency lane. It carries the urgent, can't ignore it signals. We're talking sharp pain like a paper cut, or that sudden feeling of heat if you get too close to a stove. And here is the absolute game changer. This pathway does the exact opposite of our express train. A pain signal from your right foot enters the spinal cord on the right side, and bam, it crosses over to the left side almost immediately, right there at the entry level. Then it travels all the way up to the brain on that opposite side. See the difference?
So let's put it all together. Let's go back to our injury on the right side of the spinal cord. What does it hit? Well, it hits the dorsal column pathway, our touch express train, before it gets a chance to cross. So you lose touch on the same side as the injury, the right side. But that same injury hits the spinothalamic pathway, our pain signals, after they've already crossed over to the left. So you lose pain sensation on the opposite side. And there it is, mystery solved. It all comes down to where the wires cross.
Okay, so we've cracked the code for the spinal cord. But what happens if we move a little higher up? Let's travel up to the brainstem, because this whole crossed wires thing creates some even more interesting puzzles there.
Yeah, in the brainstem, things get a little more complex. See, all the nerves that control your face and head, they're called the cranial nerves, they plug directly into the brainstem. So if you have an injury right there, you get this really classic crossed pattern that doctors look for. You get problems with your face on the same side as the lesion, but problems with your body on the opposite side.
And this pattern is an unbelievably powerful tool for doctors. Seriously, just by looking at these crossed symptoms, they can figure out exactly where a problem is. So, for example, if a patient can't stick their tongue out straight, it veers off to one side, but they've lost sensation on the other side of their body, a good neurologist can say, aha, the problem is right here in the medulla. It's like neurological detective work.
So all these signals are traveling up these different highways. Where are they all going? What's the final destination?
Well, they all pull into one central hub deep inside the brain. It's called the thalamus. And you can really think of it as the brain's grand central station, or maybe a giant biological switchboard. Almost every single piece of sensory information, touch, pain, sight, sound, everything except smell, actually, it all has to pass through the thalamus first. It gets sorted and then routed to the right place for you to actually, perceive it.
And this station is incredibly organized. It's not just a big jumble of signals. Just like a train station has different platforms for different destinations, the thalamus has specific little hubs, or nuclei, for every type of sense. There's a specific platform for body sensation, another one for face sensation, a different one for vision, another for hearing. Every signal has its own designated gate to arrive at. It's remarkably precise.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that your entire reality, everything you see, hear, and feel right now, it all depends on this incredibly precise and frankly, kind of fragile wiring system. It's an absolutely beautiful system that works flawlessly most of the time, but it all hinges on the right wires connecting to the right places. Which leads to a pretty wild final thought, doesn't it? Your entire sense of self, your experience of being you, is riding on this biological switchboard, a switchboard that's built on a foundation of crossed wires.